Right now, while you are watching this, two of the most beloved eyeshadow primers in America are quietly being sold off by the giant that owns them. The formulas you have trusted for years are being changed behind your back, and almost nobody is telling you. And that little tube on your bathroom shelf, the one you paid close to $30 for, shares a parent company with one that costs about $7. Same labs behind both, identical chemistry inside both. Wildly different receipts at the register. Somewhere between your makeup bag and a corporate boardroom in New York, you are being played. So today we are pulling the curtain all the way back on 7 eyeshadow primers you should think very hard about before you buy them again in 2026. Then I am going to hand you 3 that quietly pass the one test dermatologists actually care about on the thinnest skin you own. Let me say one thing before the makeup artists in the comments sharpen their brushes. Not a single primer on this list is going to hurt you. This is not a toxic ingredient scare, and I will not insult you with one. What you are about to hear is a money story, a corporate story, and a sensitive eye story, all braided together into something the beauty counter would really rather you did not understand. The skin on your eyelid is some of the most delicate skin on your entire body, far thinner than the skin on your cheek, and it reacts faster and angrier than anywhere else on your face. Dermatologists who spend their days treating itchy, swollen, flaking eyelids will tell you the single most common trigger they see is fragrance, the perfume hiding inside products that have absolutely no business smelling like anything at all. Hardly any shopper thinks to check for it. Why does fragrance cause so much trouble up there in particular? Because eyelid skin is not only the thinnest on your face, it also folds and rubs against itself all day, which traps whatever you applied right against the surface and gives any irritant hours of close contact to do its damage. A scent your forearm would shrug off can leave your lid red, puffy, and stinging by mid-afternoon. And here is a trick worth its weight in gold. The word unscented does not mean fragrance-free. Unscented often means the brand added a masking fragrance to cover up the smell of the other ingredients, which means your sensitive eyes are still getting a dose of the exact thing causing the trouble. The phrase you actually want stamped on the tube is fragrance-free. Hold that thought, because it becomes the dividing line for this entire video. Now for the part that really stings. A tiny cluster of beauty conglomerates owns nearly every primer brand you can name off the top of your head, and they've quietly perfected a shell game. They sell you the luxury version at the department store counter and the budget version at the drugstore, and both versions land in the same corporate bank account. Once you understand who owns what, you stop seeing brands and start seeing a handful of giants wearing 100 different masks. Let me show you exactly how that plays out, primer by primer. Number 7, the MAC Paint Pot. Walk into any beauty store and someone will swear up and down that the MAC Paint Pot in the shade Painterly is the only eye base a woman will ever need. The quiet problem nobody mentions is simple. It was never built to be a primer in the first place. What you are actually buying is a long-wearing cream eyeshadow that fans have repurposed as a base, which means roughly $25 buys you a product that was never engineered to be the grippy, oil-controlling layer a true primer is supposed to give you. On an oily lid, it can do the exact opposite of what you wanted, sliding and creasing the very shadow it was meant to lock down. MAC lives inside the Estee Lauder empire, the New York beauty house that also owns Clinique, Bobbi Brown, and Tom Ford Beauty. Here is the detail to file away. MAC is one of the brands Estee Lauder is fighting hardest to protect and keep, which tells you it is a cash engine the company guards closely. Remember that, because the brands Estee Lauder is desperate to get rid of are coming up later, and that is where this story turns genuinely uncomfortable. If you love the paint pot as a cream shadow, wonderful. Just know you are using a shadow as a primer and paying shadow prices for the privilege. Number 6, the Nars Pro Prime Smudge-Proof Eyeshadow Base. This one earns its cult following honestly, and I want to be fair to it. It goes on completely colorless, it grips powder shadow beautifully, and a lot of women genuinely adore it. The trouble, once again, is the receipt. You are looking at around $30 for a small tube, and independent reviewers who line it up against bases costing a third as much keep arriving at the same awkward verdict. The gap in performance simply does not match the gap in price. Nars belongs to Shiseido, the Japanese beauty conglomerate, and the backstory is almost unbelievable. The brand was founded by makeup artist Francois Nars, and it grew from roughly $10 million in sales in the late 1990s into a brand worth well over $1 billion in global sales after Shiseido took it over. That is one of the most efficient markup machines in beauty history, and a slice of that markup is sitting quietly in your little eyeshadow base. Loving the texture is completely valid. Paying luxury rent for a layer of grip you can rent far cheaper somewhere else is the part worth questioning hard. Number 5, the Urban Decay Eyeshadow Primer Potion. For a great many women over 40, this was the very first eye primer they ever heard of, the original holy grail in that funny little genie-shaped bottle. Does it work? Absolutely. Nobody serious is arguing it does not. But two facts deserve a hard pause before you repurchase. First, the formula and the packaging were overhauled years ago, and a loud chorus of longtime fans swears the old doe-foot wand version performed better than the squeeze tube that replaced it. A quiet downgrade dressed up and sold as an upgrade. Second, and this is the real gut punch, Urban Decay is owned by L'Oreal, the single largest beauty company on the planet. L'Oreal also happens to own NYX. For well over a decade, makeup lovers have been saying out loud in forum after forum that the budget NYX base does nearly the same job as the famous primer potion for a fraction of the money. So picture the shell game in action. Reach for the roughly $26 Urban Decay tube or reach for the roughly $7 NYX tube, and the very same corporation in Paris wins either way. You did not get a better product for the extra $19. The only thing that money bought was the feeling of fancy. And L'Oreal is nowhere near done because that same Paris-based company also owns Maybelline, Lancôme, Yves Saint Laurent, and IT Cosmetics. Stacking price tier on top of price tier so that whichever shelf you walk up to, from the drugstore end cap to the luxury counter, you are still handing your money to L'Oreal. They sell the dream at one price and the dupe at another, and they collect on both. That is not a coincidence. It is the entire business model laid out in plain sight. Number 4, the benefit, stay, don't stray. If you have been wearing makeup for any real length of time, this name might land with a little pang because Stay Don't Stray had a deeply devoted following. It was especially loved by women with reactive, sensitive eyes who said it was one of the rare primers their lids would actually tolerate without stinging or swelling. So brace yourself for the gut punch. Benefit discontinued it. The cult favorite that finally worked for the very people who struggled the most to find anything that works at all got quietly retired, and shoppers are now scouring resale sites for leftover tubes and paying inflated prices for a product the brand simply walked away from. Benefit belongs to LVMH, the French luxury house behind Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Sephora itself. A company with bottomless pockets and very little sentimentality about an eye primer that was not pulling commercial weight. This is the pattern almost nobody warns you about. The formula you have built your entire routine around can vanish on a single quarterly earnings call, decided by executives who have never once touched their own product, and you will be the very last person to find out. If this is starting to open your eyes to how the beauty aisle actually operates, do me one quick favor and tap that subscribe button right now. This channel exists for one reason: to keep women from getting quietly fleeced at the makeup counter. And there is a great deal more where this came from. All right, back to the countdown, because the final 3 are where this corporate story stops simmering and genuinely detonates. Number 3, the Tarte Clean Slate 360 Eye Primer. Tarte has built an entire identity around one word: clean, leaning hard into soft, soothing, wellness-flavored language all over its eye primer marketing. So here is something every single shopper deserves to know before they pay for that halo. The word clean is not regulated by anyone. There is no government standard, no legal definition, no agency that a brand has to satisfy before it stamps the word clean across a tube. It is a marketing word, full stop, not a safety promise, and you are paying a premium for a feeling rather than a fact. The primer itself lands around $21 and pulls genuinely mixed reviews on staying power, with a fair number of users reporting it slides and creases on oily lids. And Tarte, the brand that feels so wholesomely all-American with its influencer trips and its pastel pink packaging, is actually owned by Kosei, a large Japanese cosmetics conglomerate. None of that makes the primer dangerous, and I want to be clear about that. What it means is that the clean glow you are paying extra for is a whole lot thinner than the marketing would ever let you believe. Number 2, the Smashbox Photo Finish Lid Primer. Now we arrive at the heartbreak. For years and years, Smashbox made a lid primer that oily-eyed women treated like liquid gold, the kind of product people repurchased on total autopilot without a second thought. Then, Smashbox reformulated it and rebranded it as the Photo Finish Intensify Primer, and you only have to scroll the reviews to feel the betrayal radiating off the screen. Longtime buyers are flooding the product pages, openly begging the brand to bring back the original formula, describing the new version as thick, gritty, and a hollow shadow of the thing they fell in love with. A genuine holy grail got quietly swapped out from under the loyal customers who built the product's reputation. And the story gets darker, because Smashbox is owned by Estee Lauder, the very same New York giant from number 7, and Estee Lauder has now put Smashbox up for sale. Here is a wild piece of history most people never learn. Smashbox was founded by Dean and Davis Factor, the great-grandsons of the legendary Max Factor himself, and Estee Lauder bought it back in 2010. As this very video goes out, that brand is sitting on the auction block, bundled together with another famous name, waiting for whoever writes the biggest check. A primer caught in the middle of a corporate fire sale is not a primer I would ever build a daily routine around. Number 1, the Too Faced Shadow Insurance. This is the big one. The most worshipped eyeshadow primer of the last 15 years. The squeeze tube that countless women describe as the only thing standing between them and creased, smeared, slid-off shadow by lunchtime. It is also, without question, the brand in the most danger on this entire list. Estee Lauder bought Too Faced back in 2016 for nearly $1.5 billion, the biggest acquisition the company had ever made at the time, hailing it as one of the most dynamic makeup brands in the world. Too Faced had been founded back in 1998 by Jared Blandino and Jeremy Johnson, two friends who built it into a playful, wildly popular brand long before the conglomerate came knocking. Now, look at where things stand. Estee Lauder has written down the value of Too Faced by a brutal sum, with impairment charges on Too Faced and another brand reportedly running into the hundreds of millions, formally flagged the brand as underperforming and bundled it up for sale right alongside Smashbox, with final bids already submitted and the whole deal expected to close any week now. Sit with what that actually means for your beloved shadow insurance. A brand new owner can change the formula overnight, hike the price, yank it out of your favorite store, or simply let it slowly wither on the vine. Notice the spine of this whole video. The same conglomerate that owns number 7 also owns both number 2 and number 1, and it is racing to offload the last 2 as fast as the lawyers can move. And while every bit of this was unfolding, Estee Lauder also spent the spring of 2026 locked in merger talks with the Spanish beauty giant Puig, the owner of Charlotte Tilbury, talks that publicly collapsed in May, reportedly snagged in part on a contract clause held by Charlotte Tilbury herself. That is the boardroom chaos swirling behind the cute little tube in your makeup bag. So before you repurchase shadow insurance on autopilot one more time, understand clearly that you are buying into a brand whose entire future is being decided in a room you will never be allowed to sit in. And that is the full wall of shame. Overpriced corporate twins, a luxury markup machine, a discontinued cult hero, a clean halo that legally means nothing, a reformulation that broke thousands of hearts, and 2 beloved icons sitting on the auction block as we speak. Step back and look at the whole map, because this is the part that should genuinely change how you shop. L'Oreal owns Urban Decay and NYX and Maybelline. Estee Lauder owns MAC and Smashbox and Too Faced. Shiseido owns Nars. LVMH owns Benefit. Kosei owns Tarte. 5 giants, roughly a dozen primer names on the shelf, and every dollar funneling up into the same small cluster of boardrooms. The brand on the box is theater. Ownership is the only thing telling you the truth. And once you can see the ownership, the marketing loses its grip on you completely. Now, let me actually help you, because here come the three primers that quietly pass the exact test dermatologists apply to the fragile eye area. Fragrance-free formulas, gentle, reactive, friendly ingredients. And tellingly, not one of them is currently being shuffled around like a poker chip between the big conglomerates. First up, the Lorac Behind the Scenes Eye Primer. Created by celebrity makeup artist Carol Shaw for the punishing conditions of photo shoots and red carpets, this one was built from the start to survive exactly the kind of long-wear abuse those settings demand, and it ticks the boxes that genuinely matter for a reactive lid. The formula is oil-free, it is paraben-free, and most importantly of all, it is fragrance-free, which is the single most valuable phrase a dermatologist wants to see anywhere near your eyes. It glides on smooth, dries down silky, and holds shadow in place without the greasy slip some pricier bases leave behind. Lorac is not owned by any of the beauty giants we have spent this video dissecting, and that independence is part of why it never gets the big glossy marketing budget, and also part of why it stays quietly excellent at around $30 with none of the corporate drama attached to it. Apply it the smart way, a thin layer pressed onto a clean, bare lid, then give it 30 to 60 seconds to set before any shadow touches it. Second, the Bare Minerals Primetime Eyeshadow Primer. If you have sensitive eyes, grab a pen because this is the one to write down. The formula is fragrance-free, it is ophthalmologist tested, it is dermatologist tested, and it is rated safe for contact lens wearers, which is about as many reassurance boxes as an eye product can realistically tick on a single label. On top of that, it runs silicone-free and vegan, and it costs around $23, so there is no luxury surcharge tacked on for the privilege of a gentle formula. There is some satisfying history here too. Bare Minerals helped kick off the entire clean mineral makeup movement back in the 1990s, and it now sits well outside the big conglomerate shuffle. Here is the twist. Bare Minerals was once owned by Shiseido, the very same giant that still owns Nars from number 6, until Shiseido sold it off to an independent investment group a few years back. So the brand actually escaped the conglomerate machine, which is more than you can say for almost anything else in this video. For a delicate eyelid that punishes you the instant you choose wrong, that blend of gentle and clinically proven is precisely what you should be reaching for. Third, and this is the pick that should make every expensive brand on this list genuinely nervous, the e.l.f. Putty Eye Primer. e.l.f. is the rare beauty company that is fully independent and publicly traded, not a glittering trophy locked inside someone else's luxury empire, and it has built its entire reputation on taking $30 ideas and selling them for pocket change. This putty primer is fragrance-free, it is paraben-free, it is talc-free, and it has been screened as hypoallergenic with a touch of squalane worked in to keep the lid comfortable while it grips shadow for up to 12 hours. The price tag sits around $6. Read that number one more time and let it land. $6 buys you a fragrance-free, hypoallergenic eye primer that meets the standards dermatologists genuinely care about, made by the one company on this entire list that answers to everyday shoppers instead of a luxury conglomerate. If you take only one thing away from the next 20 minutes of your day, please let it be that. Before you run off to swap your primer, let me give you the application rules that actually make any of these work, because the wrong technique can sabotage even a great formula. Less is genuinely more on the lid. A dot the size of a grain of rice covers both eyes, and piling it on thick is the fastest way to make your shadow crease, which is the exact problem you bought the primer to solve. Press a thin layer onto a clean, completely bare lid, then wait a full 30 to 60 seconds for it to set into that slightly tacky finish before any color goes on top. And when you bring home anything new for your eyes, do what the dermatologists actually do. Patch test it first. Dab a little on the soft skin along your jawline, leave it alone for a day or two, and watch for any redness or itch before you ever take it anywhere near your eyelids. 2 minutes of patience there can save you a week of looking like you lost a fight. Here is the truth the beauty aisle would very much prefer you never carried around in your head. The eyeshadow primer that flatters your wallet and respects your sensitive eyes is almost never the one with the fattest marketing budget or the prettiest counter under the brightest lights. More often than not, it is the quiet, fragrance-free, unglamorous little tube from a brand that is not currently being auctioned off to the highest bidder. You do not owe a scrap of loyalty to a logo that would discontinue your favorite product or sell your favorite brand without losing a moment of sleep over it. The only loyalty you owe is to your own eyes. So go turn over the tube you are using this very minute, run your eye down the ingredients, hunt for that word fragrance, and ask yourself honestly who really profits every time you repurchase on autopilot. Coming up next, I am tearing apart the so-called clean beauty buzzwords that are quietly draining your wallet for nothing. The soft little labels that sound exactly like safety and legally mean absolutely nothing. Trust me, you do not want to miss that one. Tap subscribe, protect your eyes, protect your wallet, and I will see you in the very next video where we keep tearing the pretty packaging apart together.